Hi everyone, this is a tutorial on how we use geocoding at U3. There's a much longer kind of interactive video we did from this on WebEx a while back, and so if you don't feel like this is enough, let me know and we can get you linked to that. Geocoding is the mapping of addresses. Obviously it's a huge part of what we do at U3, since so much of our work when we work with an anchor institution in many ways is built around understanding their demand and how it interacts with their campus. So in that instance, it's where their employees or students are living, the types of properties that they live in, how many live within a certain driving radius, how it impacts their parking decisions, vendors that an institution uses, and areas that they've made investments, places that they have research projects. There's just a lot of instances in which we as U3 need to map addresses. And I want to just kind of walk through how we do it. We do subscribe to kind of a nationwide address locator through our ArcGIS online services, and that's definitely what we use when we have the bigger data sets. But it's not the only mechanism. And so I want to just keep you apprised of the kind of three main categories that we can do. So category one is that you build your own address locator. The concept of an address locator, we don't think about this when we're mapping an address on Google, but behind the scenes, right, there's a great deal of data on building locations, parcels, roads, neighborhoods, zip codes, etc. that's built into a powerful algorithm. So when you type an address on Google, it maps it to the the most exact location it has. You can emulate that kind of power with your own city. So you can, if you have a parcel layer or a neighborhood layer or a monuments layer, or a building points layer or whatever you have, you can actually build your own and map it. I'm not going to show you how to build the locator in this video. You will go to my YouTube page that I use for teaching, that's available to everyone at the company, and there's some really good lessons there on how to actually build your own address locators using parcels, address point data, or roads. I more just want to use it as an example of when we should do it. All right, so I created something called parcel locator here that doesn't want to drag in. There we go. Just a couple of addresses in Philadelphia. And the times that you're going to want to build your own address locator, or that when it's best, one is when all of your addresses are going to be within an area for which you have data. Right, so when we map students and employees' addresses, they tend to spread throughout the region. And we could build our own address locators, but it would take a great deal of time. We'd have to get good road and parcel level data from not only the city in question, but also the larger metropolitan area and all the counties. And if there's not a solid metropolitan planning agency with the good resources for data, that can be kind of prohibitive. And also it can be a little bit less accurate, or not necessarily less accurate, it's very accurate, it's just not necessarily as widely applicable. And that's the second thing, right? So this one here is building off of parcel data, hyper-simplified parcel data for this lesson. But if, for example, there's a big apartment complex that's on one parcel, and that parcel's address is 1001, U3 Boulevard, well, the address is for the apartments might actually be 1003, 1005, 1007, 1009, so on and so forth. And they wouldn't necessarily map to the parcel locator because it's looking for 1001. That said, there are definitely some benefits, right? One, it costs us nothing. Two, it's more efficient. And three, for those that do map, it is exact. And we'll see this in a second. When we map addresses through an online locator, it's kind of a mix of what you get. Sometimes you get them right in the center of like a building. Sometimes it's right along the road. You can watch my tutorial videos to understand why that's the case. But if you build your own locator and it's from parcels or buildings or address points that you download off of an open data, it's going to be right in the middle. And that's really good because if maybe we're only mapping points so that we can later attach it to an existing buildings file or attach it to an existing parcels file, that makes your life so much easier when you're doing a spatial join rather than having to do something somewhat manually. Right, so the way we do any kind of geocoding, you can watch my videos too if you need a tutorial to get a little bit deeper, but the best way, you want to right click on geocode, Might not actually find my locator. I just realized. Guess I just got to drag my locator in that I built. Try that again. There we go. I got my parcel locator. It wants me to know where my address is, yada, 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 and I map it, and that's good. I did build it in such a way that one shouldn't match. And we can see by zooming in on it, right, because that's the thing, what you'll see is sometimes of the 11, you might get a lot of them match because they're exact, but this one right here, 1099 Mifflin Street, it's a made-up address. There is no 1099, parcel, and so it can't find anything, and so it doesn't match. But everything else, there is a parcel for. And if I kind of zoom in on an area here and turn the parcel level data on, a lot of parcel data. And I keep zooming in. Like I said, boom, you can see it is exactly on the parcel. And, as I mentioned before, if your goal is just to map and you're going to stick with points, then this is nice for you because it's just a little bit easier to execute. And you can customize it to your geography. But if your ultimate goal is that you're mapping addresses you got from a facilities department or that you collected yourself, and the final goal is that you're going to join these to an existing file, then this is just so much nicer because it makes your join that much easier. All right, so I'm going to turn these off or else it's going to crash my ArcGIS here. But so that's that, right? And if I open the data points, you can see, 5830 Ashland Avenue, 5830 Ashland Avenue. Boom, we have a perfect match. All right. That will definitely work, and I would highly recommend, if you want to continue to use or, be competent in GIS, I think it's real good to learn how to build your own address locators, but that's definitely not the primary way we do things here. The primary way is that we use one through our ArcGIS Online. And this costs us a little bit of money, but it's essentially quarters of pennies for every address. And this works for us best, I think, in two things. One, when we have addresses, like in this online locators example, that are kind of spread throughout. Oops, what's going on here? Yeah, that are spread throughout a given geography. You're getting angry. I gotta get my memory back. My memory's going a little low. All right, so these are just some breweries that I looked up in and around, the Philadelphia area, and some are in Philly, some are in Ardmore, some are up in Downingtown. And if I wanted to do this with my own locator, right, I would need to get data from Downingtown, Philadelphia, and Ardmore, and Conshohocken. So I'd have to get Montgomery County data and Philadelphia County data, and I have to build a master data set of all that. Definitely doable. But imagine this isn't just 6 breweries or 5 breweries. Imagine this is 30,000 students and employees. And they live all throughout an hour-long driving radius. And it's really important that we want to use this to help us map transit patterns or where people are living. Then it might make sense to use something that's already been built at a national level. Right, this is what Google does, and that's going to be our next example, but this is also what ArcGIS Online, our geocoder with them, does. So it allows you both to map addresses that are at multiple geographies, and I think second, when you just have tons of addresses you need to map, like we're talking over a couple thousand, it makes most sense to go with our ArcGIS Online locator. All right, so the way that you would do it, first thing you need to do, make sure that this has you logged in. Go to File. And if it weren't logged in, as we discussed in other videos, this would say not connected, but you are connected. You would need to go and you would just need to sign in, if you're not signed in already, to wherever your ArcGIS Online is. There we go. File, sign in. You will be able to use whatever login information you have, whether it's the company-wide one or if you have a specific one. And, it often goes unnoticed, but if you look down on our ready-to-use services, we now actually have a bunch of stuff. There'll be another video on how to use some of these, but one of them is geocoding, right? So there's a world address locator that now becomes available. So, but the process is the same. I'd go to online locations. I would go to geocode. This time I want to use the world locator, right? I don't want to use the one I created, but I want to use the world one. And the world one is definitely more exact and nuanced, and so it wants more information. It wants an address. Hey, can you give me a city, right? Because this is multiple geographies. Region would mean state. Postal would mean zip. A subregion could be like a neighborhood. It just wants as much information as you can give it so it can be as exact as possible. So I gave it those. It matched all 5. Hopefully we don't crash here and lose the video. But you never can tell with Arc, can you? Little error. So what you can see now is the result of the second one, right? So these were at multiple geographies. Yeah, Yards and Dock Street are in Philadelphia, but the Conshohocken Brewing Company, Tired Hands, and Victory are in Downingtown, Ardmore, and Conshohocken, respectively, right? So it was a much larger area. Again, you really want to use this not only when your geography is more spread out, but also when you just have, as I said, thousands of addresses. I'm obviously not going to do that for this video because it would be a waste of our credits, but just to let you know, you don't need to just handle 5. This can handle thousands upon thousands of addresses. So the last way that we can do this is you can also do it through Google. So if you go to My Maps on Google, which I believe there'll be some tutorials on this on my primary webpage for students, but Google's an awesome and really easy platform to upload your data, and you can just import a CSV here. So I could find that CSV that I'm working with that had my Downingtown addresses, or sorry, my brewery addresses. Drag it in here. It's just going to know, hey, column that tells us where to put our place marks on a map. These are the ones we're really looking at here. And then a title, the brewery will be our title. Right, and there we go. Now Google maps them to the best of the abilities. Must have been some small issue. Oh, no, there we go. Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'd have to zoom out to see Victory, and Victory worked. Right, so there we go. I was able to map my addresses. Now the next step is, okay, great, we have them on Google. Now how do we get them off of Google? Again, this is a video in greater depth on my YouTube channel, but you simply export, right? So if you come up to whatever map you make here, you can export to a KML. Always want to make it a KML file. And then in ArcGIS, you can come up here and you can find the convert tool. So under conversion, convert from KML, KML to layer. You find wherever the KML that you, what are we doing here, gang? What's the plan here? Oh dear. All right. All right, so we just got to find wherever. Okay, we're going to get this all fixed. I had a small issue with the memory. Good thing it did, though, because I almost forgot a step. So this is going to vary slightly. When you map addresses in Google, you have to follow like one extra additional step that you might not if you're just drawing your own shapes here. Right, because the process I'm describing here about how you get addresses from Google into ArcGIS could be theoretically exported to any piece of geographic data. Right, so anything like that you draw a polygon or a road in Arc. So what you want to do here is, right, when you come up and you export to a KML, right, like we did before, it's going to take on that name. Maybe I'll go to downloads and just call it addresses final. Before you can actually do it in ArcGIS, you have to find what you did and you need to open it with Google Earth. And if that sounds like it's kind of circuitous and a little unfortunate, the problem really is here that like the way a KML works is there's language inside this KML that should be telling it the geometry. And so if you plot an XY coordinate, or if you draw a line, or if you do a polygon, there's usually a field either behind the scenes or working called shape which is telling you the precise coordinates that you would need to make up to make that shape. That's not really the case with this KML. You know, while it knows where it's supposed to be in the world, it's doing some kind of linkage directly to the address. And so when it comes into ArcGIS's conversion tool, it's not finding any data that tells it about coordinates. So there's no like coordinates posted behind the scenes in the data. So this interim step, by bringing it into Google Earth, right-clicking and then saving the place as, and so I'll save it on my desktop as addresses final as a KML. That sort of puts that data in there. So now I can come up and use that same tool, KML to layer, find my addresses final. There it is, addresses final, bring it in. Pick where I want to save it there, and I'll call it addresses final. It'll do its thing, blah, 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 and there you go, you'll get the data. So if you try to do this without, right, and it comes back as a geodatabase, just so you know. If you try to do this without, like I said before, doing that interim step in Google Earth, it's going to keep telling you it can't create a feature. So it's pretty critical that you remember that step, and you could right-click this and then export it if you want to use it for something else, or turn it into just a shape file. So that's awesome, right? Google went really quick, and Google definitely is the most sophisticated of address locators, so why don't we just do everything in Google? Well, so the big issue here is that Google always loves to give you a taste, but just a taste. And I'm not sure exactly how many addresses. I think it's like 1,000 or 2,000, but Google caps you, and then they have a pretty good record. So like if you're signed in on your name, and you're doing a lot of mapping here, they'll recognize it and you won't be able to map on with Google addresses anymore. So yeah, theoretically you could sign in with 10 different accounts and break your data into 10 different layers and repeat this process 10 times. Totally doable, or you could use our online locator. So those are the three options that we have at our disposal here.